Hello and welcome to the Old Bob Show, produced and directed here at Vernon Communications in Westby. Westby is located in the beautiful western Wisconsin area of coulees and valleys and ridges. And we're happy to bring to you now the Old Bob Show, and here is your host, Bob Burrell. Well, hello again to the Old Bob Show. And always nice to be here. I tell you what, the Old Bob Show gets Gene and myself up pretty early on Tuesday mornings. And that's a good thing because, you know, as we're hitting around 70, 50, 60, 70 years old now. And there's nothing worse than just lying around as one ages. And the Old Bob Show keeps us young. And I'm with a very young man here today who has the notable exception of having me literally ordering me off my own ridge hill there on our farm down here on Dodson Hollow Road. And I'd like for all of you to again meet. I'm sure most of you know him, except for all of you who you know, are out of state and that sort of thing. And that's Russ Cornford. Russ, thank you for being on board with me.
Sure.
That's great. Russ was supposed to show up last time. The last week we did our taping, and but he's a busy man, and he's one of these guys. And there's a lot of men and women like him here in this whole western Wisconsin area, and the townships and the cities like Viroqua and Westby and Stoddard. We can't forget Chaseburg, Coon Valley, who do incredible service for all of us as volunteer firemen and volunteer first responders. And you know how that is. When you've got a problem, you go to the phone and call 911 and you get service, you get a response. And thank God for people like Russ Cornford and so many others here who do that kind of thing. You know, I met Russ about a month and a half ago when we had a little fire on our farm down there. It wasn't bad. It was just you know, one of those hill fires shooting up, going over the hills, and I mean, these are steep hills. And I couldn't believe it when, you know, I'm looking out after I made the 911 call and called Coon Valley. Actually, I called the Vernon County Sheriff. And you know, John Steers has been here with us a lot. John Spears, the sheriff, and boy, I'll tell you what, the next thing I knew, there were fire trucks coming down into our farm, and I was already up on the hill trying to battle this fire, and I couldn't believe it. These little, smaller trucks were going up this hill. That was incredible. And the way they got there was that they came in a bigger truck, rolled out the back of this kind of carrier truck, and took off. So here in rural Wisconsin, you've got service even up in the far hills. Russ Cornford, I was asking Russ about your name, and because Cornford is an unusual name, and you know, all of us Norwegians around here, you say, well, where did you come from? Well, you know, I came from you know, Gulbrandsdal and this and that and many different Norwegian areas, but Russ said I came from Prairie du Chien. Yep. And I have no idea where I came from before that. Yep. But I'll tell you what, I think that's a very positive thing, because if you look at Russ's background and the many different things he's done to remain self-sustaining and independent, he's had no ties holding him back. We all celebrate Norwegianness, but you know, Russ, there are certain things about being a Norwegian that subconsciously hold you back from being certain things. Oh. Well, you've lived with them now since 1969 when you moved into Coon Valley,
yep.
Right?
Yep.
And how old were you then?
I must have been 12 or 13.
12 or 13 years old, and been there ever since.
Yep.
And when so you were not even in high school.
No, I started my freshman year high school at Westby.
That's right, and I'll bet you had a couple of side jobs at that time too.
Yeah, I worked on a farm right outside of town in Coon Valley.
Right, and since that time you've had 2 or 3 different kinds of positions. You've been a welder. Yep. And you worked in auto shops. Yep. And as a matter of fact, you right now are manager of Star Auto, right?
I own it.
You own it?
Yes.
It's fantastic. And he's still a very young man. So you worked yourself up like is the tradition, I think, of Americans here, is to keep yourself, you know, busy and to make yourself independent. and literally beholden to no one, but that's not true. We all depend on many other people.
Exactly.
When did you first get started in the fire department in Coon Valley? Russ is fire chief, by the way, of the Coon Valley Fire Department.
I joined in 1978, October of 1978.
And you were 19?
Yes.
About.
Yes.
What was the first thing you learned there?
Everything on the truck. Basically back then it was kind of like by the seat of your pants. They paired you up with another guy, and when you went on a call, you did what you were told.
Yeah, you bet. Well, that's on-the-job training, OJT.
Exactly.
So that was in 1978.
1978.
And you were 19.
Yes.
And when did you become fire chief?
1980.
1980, 2 years later, 21. So you know that even though, Russ is only kind of still a little stranger maybe to the Coon Valley area, he was good and he was very responsible. And 1978, you've been fire chief for Coon Valley, so we're 22, 36, 37 years.
Yes.
You got to be the longest serving fire chief of any department ever.
I really don't know.
Yeah.
I never kept track, never looked.
When did first responders or emergency services come into play for the fire department?
It's been there since about 1999, 98, 99 in that area.
Mm-hmm.
We used to have, Coon Valley used to have their own ambulance years ago, and then they kind of disbanded. And then Tri-State was there, and Tri-State, I think the call volume was down, so Tri-State ended up moving out, and we kind of took that over. A former first assistant chief of mine, Jed Nestigan, pretty much started the first responders and got the ball rolling, got people trained. We started out with 14, I believe.
Right.
And it's been going ever since.
The fire department, firemen like yourself and first responders are volunteer.
Yes.
That's incredible. How many volunteers in all then are associated with the Coon Valley Fire Department?
I got about 26 people right now. I got room for 30. So I'm always looking for new people.
So what kind of backgrounds and training do you
Well,
have
to become a fireman, you have to take ELF. It's entry-level firefighting. It's 60 hours of classroom, and then the burn tower.
And what kind of power?
The burn tower. You have to pass the test.
Oh, the burn tower.
Yes.
What is the burn tower?
Lacrosse has it, or WWTC has it. You have to pack up, mask up, gear up, and go through like a live burn.
Okay.
And then the first responders, it's 70 hours, but I believe they changed it, so it might be like 80 or 90 hours now of training for the first responders, and then you have to pass the test in order to be a first responder, and then there's a refresher that comes every 2 years for the first responders that you have to do.
But that was that's a real regimented discipline, protocol, and exercises that you go through now. When you first came on board, I'll bet there wasn't any of that.
It was just, seat of your pants, every call you learn from. That was it. So
Yeah, exactly.
But this is a more disciplined, it's a better way to do things with this training that we have to go through. Everybody's on the same page then. Everybody has to take the basics, and then you can go on from there. And I've got several people that have gone on from there to take Cert 1, Cert 2, EMT, paramedic. So there's different levels, but the basics you have to have the basics in order to become a member.
That's really impressive, Russ. Absolutely. And the thing about Russ Cornford is that he's just kind of offhand, he's walking around, you'd think he really didn't have a worry in the world, but that's not true, because he has incredible responsibility as the chief of the Coon Valley Fire Department, but he also has his own business, and so that's wearing many, many different hats. So what happens, Russ, for example, a day in business and the phone starts ringing and it's an emergency, like the day that you came out to our farm. I think one of your guys said that was the 4th call that day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It just happens. The pager goes off, I just close the doors and go. I have a little sign made up that says "at a fire call." If I remember, I'll put it on the door so people know. But it's a small town, so most generally when they see the fire trucks go, they know what's going on. So hear the whistle blow.
It's one of the very nice. I don't think you'd call it a holdover, but it's just a wonderful, wonderful culture of small towns like Coon Valley, where you can do as Russ said, you can just close your shop up and leave. Never happened in any metropolitan or even a larger sized city.
I've actually been working on a customer's car, and he noticed that there was a grass fire on the hill just past me.
Right.
And the pager went off. I had to go, and he sat there and answered the phone for me while I was gone to the fire. So that's just what it is. It's just a small town. And we all have it. Westby has it. Stoddard, Cashton, Viroqua, we're all
Right.
volunteers,
Right.
and everybody leaves their workplace, which is great. A lot of employers allow their employees to go. I fortunately have a pretty good boss. I can go anytime I want because I own the place. But
Yep.
but yeah, that's just what we do. We're on call 24/7.
That's fantastic. Think about that, folks. When you're looking at emergencies around the world, but here in our whole area there, that the people who are out there doing that have freely given of themselves, literally instantly. Boy, the communication links that you've got to have with how many people? 30 people. Do you have a special phone line or special phone number that all of you can use, or?
Well, it's a pager. We all carry a pager.
Yep.
So then the pager goes off, and then we've got a service called I'm Responding, which is right at the station. So like you can push a button on your cell phone, and it comes up on a computer screen right next to my locker, so I know who's coming and who's not coming. Then it's radio. All our trucks have radio. I've got portable radios, so when we're on scene, we're talking to each other on the radios. So it's
All right, so listen, you're working in your business there, and phone rings, you got a fire.
right.
Okay, what's the next thing you do?
Close the doors and leave.
But how about notifying? How about ringing the sirens and all that?
Well, the siren itself. Well, we don't use the siren very much anymore unless it's a structure fire,
Okay.
because I have to manually push it. So
All right.
basically, if we have a house fire, the pager goes off. I leave, go over to the station, push a button. It will automatically go 3 or 4 blasts before it shuts off. Everybody will hear it, but the people are responding because they hear from the pager anyway. So we don't really use the siren like we used to.
No. So is there a ready-made message already for the pager, or what?
Dispatch. There's you call 911.
Yep.
They're going to ask you state your emergency stuff. They push the button. They page us. It's dispatch telling us you have a fire at 123 Street.
All right.
It comes across on a voice
Okay.
across the pager.
All right.
And then if we need better directions or something, once we get into the truck, we call on the radio. Can you get me directions to Bob's place?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
they'll tell us just how to get there because they're the CAD system. They got the GPS. Everything
Yeah.
everything comes right up on the screen with your enhanced 911. They can tell us exactly how to get there.
That's pretty fantastic.
It is.
With
We've come a long way over the last 20 years as far as I can remember first coming into the station, and I can remember a couple of guys that were milk truck drivers. We got a grass fire at Bob's place. Bob who? And then it'd be, I know where it is, so
Yeah.
you're driving a truck, so
Yeah.
we're going to follow you. That's how it used to be. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Well, what you've talked about here in terms of things that come a long ways in the last 20 years, it's the communication technology has
Yes.
just been incredible. Here we are in Coon Valley, a small little town, and Chaseburg, etc. We have the benefit of incredible quick responding services that I don't think you even get in larger cities. I don't think it happens quite like that because it's much more complicated to get from here to there.
Yes.
And but we've got this incredible service that can come right to our door, not only through the communication technology for the fire department, but you take our phone systems and our internets, and
Yes.
thanks to fiber optics and to the managers, for example, of the Coon Valley Farmers Telephone Co-op and the Vernon Communications, et cetera, we have more outside our door on a lonely country road than you actually get in many cities.
Exactly. Yeah, we're fortunate that way.
Oh my goodness, it's incredible. Well now, so here we have the Coon Valley Fire Department, Stoddard Fire Department, for example, all volunteer. that started a long time ago, I think, the volunteer fire department.
Yes.
And because I can remember too, maybe better than you can, you know, this little fire department out there, and we had one fire chief. He actually wasn't a first responder, but this is the fire chief in Stoughton, Wisconsin. But he also had the extra duties of checking out people to see if they should have a car license, should have a driver's license or not. That's right. And yeah, I mean, he did a lot of many things. But he was there if there was an emergency, but it wasn't what you'd call a first responder kind of service. But he did all kinds of little things, and the job has of course graduated a lot from there. Stoughton had one fire truck, I think. Now it's got 4 or 5 of them, and it's got a huge building and so forth. But there's also a lot more people to serve and a lot more valuable property to take care of in all these areas. So you're a volunteer, but how about the financial support for all of the equipment and technology? How has that evolved?
Well, there's actually, there's 5 entities that own the fire department. It's Coon Creek Fire.
It's the what, sir?
It's called Coon Creek Fire.
Coon Creek Fire.
Yeah, they just changed
And
the name
what is
too,
that?
But that belongs, that's Chaseburg, Coon Valley, Town of Hamburg, Town of Coon, Town of Washington. All 5 of those people make up the fire association, and they all own the Coon Valley Fire Department. And then they have budgets, and I have a budget that I have to adhere to.
All right.
And we also do fundraisers. We have our annual dance in November.
Yeah.
We serve food at North Skedallen to make some money for extra equipment and stuff. So, but it's, yeah.
So the Coon Creek Fire Department.
Yes.
That's what you're. It's a
Well,
5.
we're actually called Coon Creek Fire and Rescue now. We just changed it just a month or so
right.
ago, and it's Coon Creek. I don't remember what they call them.
What kind? You know, I should have asked you this question before you came, and but being the fire chief, you probably got it right on the tip of your tongue.
Well, it's Coon Creek Fire Commission is my boss basically. I answer to those people,
Okay.
and we are Coon Creek
So
Fire
they're a
Rescue.
board, and you're the.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
But and so each one of these communities, who has a community budget, a city budget or a town budget, then a certain portion of that goes.
They pay dues to the Coon Creek Fire Commission,
You bet.
and that's for their fire protection
Okay.
services.
All right. And so you know, all the wonderful equipment you've got, that all came from this entity, this 5 entity
Yes.
deals. What is your budget?
My budget right now, the budget that I submit is about $25,000 a year, but that doesn't include maintenance and stuff on the trucks or purchases of vehicles. That all comes through another way.
So how does that happen? Now that's what you would call capital equipment.
Yes, yeah. So that we will be doing a capital budget and a 5-year planning to start replacing the trucks. But how it is in the past is we need a truck, you know, they pay for it. So.
Mm-hmm. And so you probably go to each one of these city councils of the 5 communities.
No, each community has a representative that comes to, and they have a meeting once a month. Coon
all
Creek
right.
Fire Commission meets the same night that we meet. We meet at 6:30, they meet at 8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 2 representatives from each township or town that sits on that board.
Okay.
And then they have a president, and then they conduct their meetings and take care of their business at that
All right.
time once a month.
All right. So I think we're beginning to get an idea of how these local fire departments work, and but at the core of it all, Russ and I have been talking about the capital or the material part of the fire departments, but at the core of it all are the volunteers. Now the volunteer, you've got to have a real spirit of a real generous spirit, that is, of wanting to help and being of service, and that's something you can't buy. Period. It's got to come right from the hearts of every one of you that are there, because everyone leaves their own work or their way of living and what have you, and literally in some cases go out and risk your lives.
Yes.
Who does the schooling and the education for these training programs?
WWTC.
WWTC, that's the,
At La Crosse.
at La Crosse.
Yep, they have a regular fire school, fire instructors that come down and, or we go to there. Like I say, everybody has to take it, so in our situation, if you join my department, you've got 2 years. We give you a 2-year grace to get in there because of the way classes are scheduled and stuff, so.
Yep.
So you gotta, and it's gotta work into your situation
Yeah,
too, so.
yeah, exactly. What, this is one of those personal questions, but in all of your years of experience here now in the Coon Valley area as a fire chief, what are your real challenges? I mean, you go day by day and you handle many different things here during the day without I mean, you don't look stressed at all, Russ.
Every day's a new challenge. You can't, there's no textbook call. It's just.
Exactly.
You gotta shoot from the hip and think on the fly.
Yeah, but think about that, and I think it's one of the things that you talked about earlier. You just, you're not between four walls all day, and you're not doing the same thing over and over again. You are being literally stimulated and inspired every day by a myriad of things that are going on, a diversity of things. Have you ever thought about throwing your hands up and saying, "I've had enough"?
Nope, not yet.
No, and you won't for a long time.
I don't think so. I love what I do.
Yeah, isn't that just wonderful?
I don't think I could ever leave the fire department unless I was physically unfit or if I had to move, and I don't feel like going anywhere for a while.
And probably carry you off down the ladder and throw you in a truck.
Maybe, yeah.
Something like that. That's
I can still sweep the floor if I'm not able to drive a truck or fight the fire. I'll be over there sweeping the floor or something, washing trucks.
It's a wonderful attitude, and it's the kind of thing that, boy, would it be great if we could, get that into our schools.
Yes.
I mean, now in this day and age, there's so much looking for handouts or looking for people to do things for yourself, and not learning the joy of working hands and head together, but of being of real service.
Yeah.
And there's a richness in that it's too bad that I think a lot of our younger generations are kind of missing along the way up. Do you give tours, or do you ever go into schools and give a little?
We do every year in October for fire prevention. Actually the school comes to us now. They come over to the station. We've got a nice new facility. It's easy to access, and we give a little talk about fire prevention and.
Right.
And every year, and we've got an open house every year with our dance, and and anybody's welcome to come to the station anytime they want. If somebody's there, we'll gladly give you a tour. And
yeah,
you
fantastic. What kind of advice would you like to give to the general population relative to taking care of their own property and their places and so forth?
Don't light fires on a windy day, Bob.
Yeah,
how's that for advice? Can you take that from me?
Not a problem. I mean, that was overly kind the way you addressed it to me. We'll always have a laugh about that because there's only two bosses in my life. One is God, and the other one is Jane Burrow. But I discovered there was a third boss in my life. The thing was that I really couldn't see you at that time because you had this helmet on, I think, and had all his gear on, but Russ is bigger than I am, and he's pretty formidable, and I had no argument, did I?
No.
No, I just climbed in the truck and left. Well, Russ Cornford, and a lot of people like Russ, no one can never be the same, but there are so many different people in our communities that do what Russ does in terms of volunteer service. In this case, fire department service and first responder service. The first responder service, that maybe some of that started way back in Boy Scouts with learning how to help revive people and so forth. But first responder these days has many different environments that you have to work in on that.
Yes.
What, for example, run a mill of your first different kinds of.
Well, you've got the elderly. You might go to call where elderly lady's fallen down and broke her hip, maybe. Heart attack, children falling off of playground equipment, broken arms. It runs the whole gamut. Flu-like symptoms, it's it's different every day.
Right.
There's no pattern to it. So.
And these kinds of calls, I mean, literally, you have to act like a medic and a doctor almost.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Personally, I haven't been doing it for more than a couple of years, but we've got guys that have been doing it for 20 years now, and they're really good at it. I'm real proud of my team. So.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Do you also take kind of rehabilitation courses, or not rehabilitation, but
you have to have a refresher every 2 years, which
yeah.
we just went through a refresher course for the first responders. So.
Okay,
so that keeps you up on everything and new things that you have to do.
You've got a crew there, and with the close working together, there's no doubt that you develop what's called an esprit de corps. I'm sorry. ESPRI. No, the esprit de corps.
Yeah.
It's a togetherness, a spirit of togetherness.
Yes.
Am I right on that, Gene?
Right.
Yeah, togetherness, and where one guy will, step forward to save the life of another guy within your. Is that kind of thing?
That's there.
Yeah, it's like a military.
Like a family.
Exactly. That's exactly right. It's a family. Exactly. I have a nephew, grandnephew, who is a fire chief down there in Florida somewhere.
Good.
Yeah, and his father-in-law was a fire chief up in Connecticut or somewhere else. So I hear from him now and then, and but he sometimes puts out some interesting pictures on the Facebook.
Sure.
Speaking of Facebook, you have a website too, I'll bet.
Coon Valley has a Facebook page.
Yeah.
Coon Valley Fire.
That's right. So the best way to contact you is simply through 911 or the Sheriff's Department.
If you have an emergency,
Yeah.
yes.
Or what happens if they call you direct?
People do. People have called me at home and said, I've got a chimney fire. So I literally call 911 myself for them and then go. That's
Right.
happened before.
So Sutton and I will have come and gone by the time you watch this film, but I know you'll be there, and the fire department will be ready to go, and the first responders will be ready to go.
Yeah, I hope not, but we'll be there if
You
we
betcha,
have to.
you betcha. Thank you so much, Russ, for being my guest.
Sure, thanks.
And I think what I want to do is do a little background research myself on your name. It'd be kind of interesting, and
Go
then
for
I can help you out a little bit.
There you go.
You bet.
Maybe I don't want to know.
My guest has been Russ Cornford, and as you know, all of you who watch this from our local area, and you know much better than I do. And but it's been a real pleasure and a joy to know Russ and to work with him, and it's a great feeling of comfort to know that people like Russ and all of his crew, some of them are neighbors, are there to be of quick, fast service. You got to say some great things about our western Wisconsin area here in terms of a large community who look out for each other and watch out for each other. So thank you very much for being with us, and thank you again, Russ, for being my guest, and we're looking forward to seeing all of you again next week on the Old Bob Show. God bless.